you get started. All time to start. When you get down, y'all. When you get down, ain't no turning back now. Now that you got down, we just gonna say.
Hey, microphone check 1 2 1 2. Hello out there in internet land, everyone. It is our favorite time of the week. It is Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means we have another live installment of That's My Story for you guys. We got to give grace and blessings and Most High looked out for us today because we had some storms that looked like they were about to be in Ken and I in myself's area, and we got smiled upon, and the sun is out there and it's shining great. You know, we want to let you guys give you guys a moment.
Sun?
Oh, yeah. That sun is looking beautiful out there. Nothing like some sunshine.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. We want to give you guys a moment to get situated. Please drop us a comment. Let us know where you are tuning in from. And also grab yourself, as usual, grab yourself a snack. Grab yourself a beverage. Text a friend. You know, share this link. So the more the merrier, and have your friends come down and sit down with us a while as we get into our live interactive chat. If this is your first time tuning into That's My Story, oh man, it's great. It's the hottest internet sensation where we bring on some of your favorite musicians, producers, engineers, entertainers, whatever their field of expertise happens to be. We invite them on and we take a little journey down memory lane, get into a deep dive conversation and allow them to share their story with us. Yeah. Also, let me get into introducing my co-host, my illustrious, esteemed co-host, who I've had the pleasure of sharing this screen with for 44 weeks. Ladies first, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't know by now, she's a triple threat. She's a talented singer, dancer, and actress. She represents the ICATs as well as a co-founder of the lovely lady group, the Honeycomb. She is also the spouse to the talented Mr. Verdine White, who's a legendary bass player as well as co-founder of Earth, Wind, and Fire. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mrs. Shelly Clark White.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Look at him.
We got to keep it going. Also joining us as usual is my band leader. You know, he's a talented musician, producer, songwriter, arranger. He represents the chairman of the board. He is also a member of the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame, and they call him one of the kings of Carolina beach music. Is that right? Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Ken Knox.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Shelly. Midas. Wow. Hey, we got a guy that's coming today is the real deal.
Real deal. How you feel?
Producer.
Yes.
Real deal.
Real
what I'm
deal.
doing like that.
Yeah.
Yes, there's many levels.
Oh,
Many
God.
levels.
But anyway, listen, I want to introduce you to. Wait a minute. Your name is.
My name is not Slim Shady.
Yeah. No. He's a great arranger, a great keyboardist, and as I say every week, an awesome dad.
Thank you.
And hey, the fans love him. The folks over here on the panel love him, and in our whatever you want to call it. So,
Yeah.
you know, he's much loved, Mr. Jerry Midas Hardison.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Like Ken was saying, ladies and gentlemen, we're excited today. We have a heavy hitter that's joining us today. But before we get into all of that, we would like to remind you guys, you got about 2 weeks left before we phase off of Facebook completely and move over to YouTube. Now, for tonight, if you're watching on YouTube and, you know, due to our content, sometimes you may get booted because Facebook is very particular. If you get booted, don't worry. Go on over to our YouTube link, which is over at the official chairman of the board. Over on YouTube. It's at the bottom of the screen. I'm so used to it being popped up. It's right there, folks. And while you're over there, make sure you hit the like, make sure you hit the subscribe, because as of April 1st, we will no longer be broadcasting live on Facebook. However, I have been informed that we will still pin the actual link for YouTube, but we know a lot of you guys are more creatures of habit toward Facebook. So if you're more of a Facebook user, we're still trying to make it as easy as possible for you. That link will still be under the That's My Story page, where you can get right on over to YouTube. But make sure you handle that little bit of business before April 1st. And also, we do have a PayPal link. If you guys would like to be a blessing to our platform, there you have it right there. PayPal.me/that'smystory2021.
Yes.
Go check us out and then drop us a little donation. And we appreciate and love you guys as usual. All right, guys. I believe it's time for the customary toast. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys are, by now at the 44 episodes, I hope you guys are toasting with us. You guys ready?
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. This is to episode 44. May our tomorrows always arrive bearing more joy and peace than our yesterdays.
All
Cheers,
right.
guys.
Cheers.
Salud. Everyone at
Salud.
home.
Salud.
All right. So we have a lot to get into tonight, guys. So we're not going to further prolong the time. And I know we know our guest is waiting. We know you guys are at home waiting. So, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have coming to the stage a multi-Grammy Award winning musician, more specifically a drummer, producer, arranger, and executive that first went on tour with his father as a child and later went on many tours as a man. He's been the secret sauce behind many gold and platinum albums, and he has worked with, let me take a breath.
Yep.
All right, Rufus and Chaka Khan, Curtis Mayfield, Jerry Butler, Tony Bennett, Gene Chandler, Frank Sinatra, Natalie Cole, Nina Simone, Ken Quincy Jones, and the list goes on and on and on. And obviously, with the career like his and the resume as such, he has given so much of his life to the entertainment industry, and he has also given back by serving as dean of the McNally Smith College of Music, as well as through his own Twin Cities Mobile Jazz Project. And we are definitely in for a treat tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, help us make some noise at home while we make some noise on the screen for the brilliant, talented, legendary Mr. André Fischer.
Yes.
Welcome, Andre. Thank you for joining us today on That's My Story, episode 44.
You know, I toasted along with you guys too.
Oh, fantastic.
Nice.
Fantastic.
I get my friends to tap the plate too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we want to thank you for joining us today and taking a moment out of your schedule to sit down and have a discussion with us and get us a little more familiar with your career throughout the music industry.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Shelly. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Now it's tradition here on our platform because our platform was started, due to COVID-19, and when the pandemic hit, we were all forced to be on quarantine. So our platform actually started. It was a spinoff from the pandemic. It's customary here. We like to ask our guests, have you picked up any new hobbies since we've been on quarantine, since the pandemic has been going on? Any new interests?
Other than trying to plan the demise of a regime that just got voted out of office.
We gonna go there first.
No, a bunch of things. I learned how to be even more patient.
Yeah.
And that patience also made me be reflective. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes the echo was deafening.
Nice way to put it.
Yeah.
But when you're raised being in the service of others, it doesn't matter whether it's a pandemic or anything else. You still have to follow through with those things you know you need to do.
Absolutely. That's well said. Well said. Salute to you. Now, Andre, where were you born and raised? And tell us a little bit about your early upbringing.
First of all, there was a club called the Lakeview Club near Lake Minnetonka in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And December 25th, 1948, Frances Fisher, my mother, was singing on stage and her water broke.
Mm.
And she didn't live in Minneapolis. She was gigging there, and her husband was with her, dealing with a gentleman who taught orchestration and composition. He was finishing off some training after he'd left Michigan State and had toured already. So they came there on a reconnoitering mission, and she gigged at the club that night. Her water broke. She wore a waist pincher. A lot of people didn't even know she was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And the very next morning, yours truly was born in Minneapolis. That's how I got born in Minneapolis.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. Interesting
At
story.
the time, they didn't live here. They lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Mhm.
Oh, nice.
My dad was from Durand, Michigan. My mother was by way of Lawrence. Was that North or South Carolina?
Oh, South Carolina. Is that what?
Yeah, South Carolina.
Charleston.
Yeah. Charleston's about maybe 2.5, 3 hours from here.
We got Leaks and Barksdales. We got all kinds of people.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they went to Michigan, and then they came back to Minnesota. That's when they started raising me in Minneapolis because my father wanted to finish with that gentleman. And then my mother started doing the circuit. She was one of the top singers in the town at the time.
Oh, awesome. Now, how old were you, or would you say at what age did you begin to become interested in music?
I went on the road with my father, started at 4.
4.
My mother sang with Peg Leg Bates and Preston Love's band.
Oh my God.
It was a review that toured the United States. And as a woman entertainer, you couldn't bring your child with you.
Okay.
That was like a no-no. So, and then also because of my color, there's a lot of places they knew that they were going to go, and they didn't want to have to explain who was that little white-looking baby. Because when my mom and dad were married, it was against the law in the majority of the states they traveled to. So what happens at that time, at 4, it was easier for me to go on the road with my dad.
I see.
He was with Stan Kenton, with Woody Herman,
Okay.
Harry James.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
He was always, he wound up, that training got him to be an arranger, an orchestrator, a copyist, and he was usually the band manager. They hired him because he did all those things.
Okay.
And so I was on a band, a semi-trailer that had been turned into a sleeper bus. And it had bunks in it and an office, and the instruments were stored up over where the cab connects to the semi. That space right up under there, that's where they put all the instruments and some of the lights.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right below that was an office, the leader of the band. There was a shower. There were bunks on both sides. There were closets at the back with mirrors where their uniforms were.
Wow.
There was big cords that if they pulled up to a gig or a gas station, they'd plug the bus in.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
And also, when they got guys to play on the band, they always had to get somebody who knew how to drive the truck, too.
Absolutely.
A couple of guys would take turns doing truck. And that's also when I found out as a kid that they were smoking weed. You know, because the cab smelled really funny on that truck.
Right.
But that's how I traveled. I went, by the time I was stopped traveling with my dad when I was about 9. So every summer when kids are doing summer school or hanging with their friends, I'm on a road with my father and 14 grown men going to concert halls, NCO clubs, military bases, radio shows, standing on the side of the stage. By the age of 6, I was a band boy. They'd give me a list of the songs for that night, and I'd go into big sleeper trunks and pull out the arrangements and put each guy's folder together.
Oh, that's awesome. You started out early.
And then if there's a guy I didn't like, number 14 became number 12.
Oh, okay.
I was the only one doing it, so they knew who to come get. So I got in trouble, but since my dad was the band manager, they couldn't spank me.
Right. And I gotta ask you about you said your mom, was a singer. Legend is you used to play magazines with the jazz brushes before she would gig.
She would make me accompany her on brushes on a magazine.
The
magazine was usually a life or a look or an ebony, because I could get that sound like you're frying eggs.
Jet and ebony.
She made me listen to Al Barty and different drummers and their brush techniques and how they accompany the vocalist. So a lot of my accompaniment I learned from my mother, and we would trade fours.
Okay.
And she would scat and she would sing, and my mom could play a little piano too. And then one day she told me, she said, trading fours is like talking. Playing is like talking. And she said, sometimes if you don't have anything to say, you need to be quiet.
Very true. Very true.
So what that meant is my fours were weak.
Well, you know what? I bet those magazines were all in shreds when you got done with them.
No. Matter of fact, they weren't in shreds. The whole point of it was with the finesse and is to know the touch.
The touch, right. Got
just
you.
Just like you hear the voice and it has that feeling when a singer sings. You want to be able to play your instrument the same way. That's why when certain singers get upset with bands, it's because they're not touching it; they're blowing it.
Okay. Very well said. Very well said.
You have to caress the song like you're a seamstress. It's like you're trying to sew a great dress to fit someone in.
Custom made.
Because what's featured is the storyteller. We keep trying to feature the accompaniment. We turn that up in the mix. It wasn't designed to be the storyteller.
Right.
Storyteller is the voice. So that comes from my mama. So that's why I've only produced vocalists, because that's what I know how to do, and that's when I tell people to save shit for their solo record. Yeah,
and it's amazing how even at an early age we begin to walk down a path that later, reveals itself.
Right.
Well, I stopped traveling with my dad by about the age of 9. By the time I was 9, I'd been to all the states. I'd been to a couple countries. The teacher would say, "What did you do for the summer?" And when I told her, she would make me sit in a stool in the corner, and she said, "I have a vivid imagination. Why do all these little half-breed kids lie about what they do?"
Oh my God!
And I went home and told my father that. He took me back to school. He cussed her out in front of the class and told her that because she hadn't been past the county line was no reason to ostracize his son. And then he pulled me out of that school. It was in Omaha, Nebraska. Walked me 6 blocks down the street and put me in a Lutheran school.
Oh, Dad didn't play any games.
No, but then he joked and he said, "That's why when I grew up, I made bad potato salad because I went to a Lutheran school."
Don't talk about the potato salad. You can't eat everybody's potato salad.
Definitely. But I traveled to all these places as a child, and when people speak of travel, they speak like it has some kind of social acumen to be able to travel. Well, what the hell? An adventurer who was trying to make it west in the frontier days wasn't thinking about how cool am I going to look because I went 20 miles down the road. You did it because it was an adventure. And black people's moved from south to north and to the west during the Dust Bowl, and during our history, we're adventurers. Okay, so we're supposed to travel. And my father told me, he said, "Look, little yellow Negro, you have to be a citizen of the world. You can't just be a citizen of your neighborhood."
Yeah, facts.
He said, because today you in Memphis. He said, tomorrow we're going to be in Texas. And the day after that, you'll be in Minnesota. He said, you got to figure out how those places run because you have to survive in each one of them.
Well, speaking of running, so in 1970, you moved to Chicago.
No, it was before then.
How long before that?
It was 68.
68.
Okay, so what prompted the move to Chicago?
Prompted the move to Chicago was the fact that I'd already been in that area of the country. I lived in Columbus, Ohio, got stranded there, and became part of J.C. Davis's band at the Bottoms Up Club. He was a sax player on Please, Please, Please on James Brown.
Oh, okay.
That's the one I told you about the other day that had been up in Canada because a lot of the brothers liked to date the white girls.
Yeah.
Some of them played with Lil Charles and the Sidewinders.
Okay.
So when he came back to the United States, he settled in Columbus with a wife who was from Montreal. She spoke French.
Okay.
So he had the house band at the Bottoms Up Club in Columbus, Ohio. And we played behind every act that came in town. I played behind the OJs and Solomon Burke and Mitty Collier, Mabel John, Louis Curry from Detroit. That's how I got in touch with Mac. Is I had to call him to get a copy of the arrangement because he came.
Okay, yeah.
So I played with JC, and before that I had been with a group called the Exits, had a record called Under the Street Lamp, and I toured with them on the Bobby Blue Bland tour.
Wow. Okay.
Before that, I was playing with a group called the Young Hearts in Los Angeles, playing around town, El Monte Legion Stadium, and up above the roller rink off of Adams and Arlington.
Okay.
You know, and playing all those gigs. That's still when white folks lived in Baldwin Hills, and the Baldwin Theater was a big deal, and Mavericks Flat had just opened up.
Mavericks Flat.
So I got some potpourri going off in here. So y'all figure out which century and how you want to slice this, and I'll put some butter on your bread.
Okay, fair enough.
What happens is I won't speak hearsay.
Right.
I only speak from personal experience or direct contact, as opposed to, where do you get that information from? The information's from me directly. If I haven't lived on it, I can't quote on it.
You can't.
So I tend to just give information as opposed to paint a picture of the people. Instead, I'll give you the circumstance. So basically, all of a sudden, I get tired of living in Columbus. That's also where I met Craig McMullen, the brother who was the guitar player on Superfly and Freddie's Dead.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I convinced Curtis to hire him to come work with the Impressions because Sonny Forrest quit. That was the guitar player from Jackie Wilson and from Sam Cooke. That's who was playing with the Impressions. And Sonny decided to do something else. And they needed another guitarist. So I called Craig in because I played with him on singles gigs in Columbus, and I promised him that I'd find him something, and I kept my word, and Curtis hired him. Yeah. In fact, Craig was the only one Curtis would let tune his guitar.
Really?
And also, Craig got him into that Condor unit, which Eddie Harris was using on his horn.
Oh yeah.
He's the one who got Curtis into wah-wah pedals, is Craig McMullen.
Man, okay.
Yeah. And got him off into that. So Craig I brought in, and that was right before Curtis was thinking about going solo and talking to Leroy Hudson about taking his place.
Well, let me ask you this. How did you end up with the Impressions?
First of all, I leave the house band gig in Columbus, Ohio. I go home to make amends with my father, who I hadn't talked to in a few years.
Okay.
I wind up, his wife picks me up at the airport. I stay at his house for 3 days. On the first day, he kept asking me why I was itching. And at the end of the first day, he went to the Thrifty and came back with some blue ointment. So, there's a lot of things I learned while being on the road.
Right.
And then by the third day of staying at my father's house, the phone rang, and it was Fillmore Jr. Fillmore Jr. was the pianist with Gerald Wilson, and his father was Fillmore Sr., who was a vocal coach to Sarah Vaughan and Carmen McRae.
Wow.
Okay, well, he played in Los Angeles and also played with many different people. Phil is the one who always looked out for me. So he called me at my dad's. He said, "It's glad you're back." And I said, "Well, I'm just at my dad's. I don't know what I'm going to do next."
Right.
He said, "I'm going to come get you. You're going to go to San Francisco with me. I'm going to be the house band for Oscar Brown Jr. in a play called Big Time Buck White in San Francisco.
Okay.
And you're going to be my drummer, and you'll be an understudy for one of the parts in the play."
Oh, okay.
3 days after hitting my dad's house, after being gone for a few years, I'm now riding in a Volkswagen bus up Highway 1 to San Francisco. We meet the producers of the show. I meet Oscar and Gene Pace. I meet Ted Ross, who was the Lion and the Wiz. I met Charles Weldon, who was in Roots. I met Ted Lange, who was the bartender in Love Boat. I meet all these great actors. This was their first play.
Yeah.
Oscar at the time was playing Big Time Buck White, and then he got Big Black, who played with Hugh Masekela, to wind up being Big Black. And on Broadway, Muhammad Ali had even tried it for a minute. Wow. And also then that actor, the big tall black actor named J2 Kumbuka, played Big Time Buck White. And it was controversial at the time. anything with a clenched fist and an afro was controversial. And at that particular time, we were at the New Committee Theater, and feds were actively looking for Black Panthers. They were arresting Black Panthers all over the place. And it was a big deal that Kathleen Cleaver came to the play, and a lot of so-called revolutionaries came to see what this play was about. So then Merle Saunders joined the play as the organ player when Phil got ready to leave. That was the guy who played with Jerry Garcia.
Okay.
And Merle Saunders was also responsible for playing at the Trident and turned me on to all the musicians who were in the Whispers. James Levi, the drummer. I met Tom Donahue at K-San. That's, I knew Sly when he was Sir Graham, when he was a disc jockey.
Sir Graham, okay.
Tom Donahue is the one who talked Sly into making a group. Tom Donahue is also the one who helped put together the Jefferson Airplane.
Nice.
So that's the circle of people I'm traveling in. Now I'm in this play with Oscar Brown. I'm staying in a boarding house. And in the boarding house with me is Mickey Roker, Herbie Hancock, and Tootie Heath and Buster Williams. Okay. A lady's name was Frederica Fleming. She ran a boarding house that basically just musicians stayed at.
Yeah.
Plus, it gave her the pick of the litter when she so chose.
Yeah.
And they played the Both And Club, which was on Divisadero and Fell. I lived on Clayton and Fell. They were still running Gray Line tours through Haight-Ashbury when I lived there. We used to see Santana in Golden Gate Park for free.
Oh, man.
At that time, the Fillmore was the thing. Keystone Corners and Ruthie's and all them places, they didn't even exist yet.
Okay.
Right? So basically, this was earlier San Francisco. And I was in this play, and the play was a hit. And at night, when the play was over, I'd go up the street, and at the Matador, my uncle Claire Fisher would be playing with Cal Jader. Across the street at the Jazz Workshop was little Esther Phillips with George Duke accompanying her.
Wow.
And then at Basin Street West, it was like Red Fox or Richard Pryor. and one of those nights, the Impressions were the musical act at Basin Street.
Okay.
So on a night off from the play, I go to Basin Street. Now I got new clothes on. I got the English collar.
Fresh.
And not tied.
Got the collar turned up.
San Francisco, yeah. And plus a yellow Negro with all this food. I just knew I was cute. So anyway, I'm going to the Impressions, and what's funny with me is that people that I really liked or had been in contact with or musically some kind of way, it seemed to materialize.
Okay.
So when I went to see the Impressions, I knew the songs because Lenny and Billy, who played We're a Winner and Keep On Pushing, I knew who those two musicians were. They died in a car crash.
Oh, man.
That's when Billy Stewart died in a car crash, too, during that same time period. And then that's when they replaced him with Lucky Scott on bass. Okay, and then they had a different drummer. Then they got me. So when I saw them that night, it was Melvin Jones on organ. He was from Baby Huey and the Babysitters.
Okay.
His brother is Harold Jones, the drummer, who I wound up later using on Unforgettable on Natalie's album.
Oh,
nice.
Well, he played with Sarah Vaughan. He played with Count Basie. So, but his brother Melvin Jones played with the Baby Huey and the Babysitters, and he played with the Impressions. So when I saw the Impressions that night, it had Melvin on organ, Lucky Scott on bass, Sonny Forrest on guitar, some white kid named Fuzzy playing, the fuzz guitar, as a matter of fact.
Fuzzy.
Curtis thought it would make him look mixed if he had a guitar player. And then the other keyboard player playing Wurlitzer, the musical director that night was Donny Hathaway.
Oh, no.
Okay, so I watched the show, and Lucky and Donnie both had trouble with the drummer because he wouldn't watch for cues.
Watch those cues.
And he dropped time. When you establish a pocket with R&B singers, you can't
break that pocket.
So what happens is they act like they knew me. Because I stood around and other people were talking to me. I introduced myself, and through Melvin, I found out I knew his brother, and we started talking. I talked to Donnie, And plus, I knew some of Donnie's friends from DC, just by chance when he was going to Howard there. So they start talking. And they said, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, if I was going to play with you guys, I got to give 2 to 3 weeks notice. This is a play. It's not just a gig down the street. I had to learn cues and the whole routine."
Yeah.
And they said, "Look, come tomorrow for sound check. We're gonna have a sound check without the drummer.
Okay.
At noon, can you come?" I said, "Yeah, I'm off tomorrow, so I can come."
Yeah.
So I went to sound check, and Sam and Fred and Curtis were there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's because I'm Capricorn or because I've been raised around musicians. I have a good musical memory. I remember the intros. I remember transitions. I remember breakdown points. Yeah. So in other words, I don't play as if I'm anticipating anything.
You already know.
Okay, so what happens is you break the flow like that, you know, as far as that goes. This phone stops ringing. If not, you want me to just go shut it off?
You're fine. You're fine.
If it don't stop ringing after the third ring, I'm gonna throw it.
Okay. We'll pardon you for a moment if need be.
I can't let it keep ringing. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead. That's fine. We'll catch you back up. Definitely. This is interesting content.
Fascinating.
So anyway, I'm playing, and first I thought it was just going to be 1 or 2 songs.
Right.
We do half a set, and Lucky's sweating, and they're starting to get into it. And let's go back to the breakdown again. We like that.
Yeah.
You know? But the thing is I came up jazz, so I'm playing the song. I'm not playing a beat. Okay. So there's difference between a musician and somebody who's just a drummer. Okay. So what happens is I made it swing, and they said, "Look, you have to join us because tomorrow we're going to LA. We're doing the Rosie Greer show. We're doing the Della Reese show. And this will be the first time a black act is performing at the Troubadour."
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a big deal to play the Troubadour. And that's the time Curtis and the Impressions went and played it. Okay. And that's when they had the choice of color and some of the newer tunes.
Oh, man, favorite song. Let me ask you this though. When you said did you say that you recorded you went back to Chicago and re-recorded the songs? Did you say this?
Curtis couldn't get his masters back from ABC Paramount. And what he did is to negate them from being the only ones to license those tracks to a film or something else, because Curtis was starting to get more into publishing and more into film. So what he said, him and Eddie Thomas got together, and they said, "Look, we'll just go re-record everything because the original arranger is still here, Johnny Pate."
Okay.
So Johnny Pate came in town, and that's when I met Bobby Christian. That's when I met all the session players from Chicago, and that's when I start going to Universal Studios and Brunswick Studios and Audio Finishers. And this was even before Paul Serrano. Paul Serrano hadn't even built a studio yet.
Okay.
So he re-recorded all of his songs, and basically now owned his own masters.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It meant if he had to go back to negotiate with ABC Paramount, he was in a totally different stature than he was if he say, "Oh, please give me my stuff back."
Right.
And that's when I also found out that perpetuity does not mean perpetuity as far as master tracks are concerned.
Right. There you go.
It's just like Rufus now. It's very strange because if all of us decided we wanted to go get some of those masters, we could. It would take probably a couple years to get it out. And usually you don't, because all you do is renegotiate your licensing and try to get a better split and let them keep doing the pimping like they've been doing.
Right.
Except that I don't know if you've heard, but Universal had a fire. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, we had
there are
Lenny Williams was a part of that.
Well, wait a minute. You're talking about hundreds and hundreds of acts. Masters got burned up. Some Rufus tracks, Elton John, Tom Petty. There's all kinds of tracks. So it's like, if we went back to get those tracks now, if all the acts got together to bring lawsuit on the fact that you destroyed our product, which how do you put a price on that?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like really some strange stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like in the future, I'm actually glad for more digital or archiving because this is our legacy.
Absolutely.
You know, Benny King and Little Richard and Sarah Vaughan and Nina Simone. That's our legacy.
Yeah.
I don't care what label it came out.
Yeah.
You know, those are examples of part of our culture during those time periods.
Right.
Okay.
So let me ask you something about the album. There was a song, "The Making of You."
Yes.
I love that song.
I do too.
Yeah.
And you know anything about it? Can you tell us anything about the song?
He had Gladys in mind for that.
Oh,
okay.
Wow.
Okay. And it had a slightly different time signature. But he didn't worry about Gladys being able to do that. You know, it's just like Burt Bacharach going to Dionne Warwick. You know, some of Bert's stuff had a bar or 2 in it, a bar of 5, you know, and everybody's not into that. But, you know, black folks don't always count. We just catch the groove. Yeah.
It does.
Well, you know, let's let our audience catch the video.
Catch the groove, folks. I'm about to catch it.
The makings of you. It is true. The makings of you. The righteous way to go. Little one would know or believe if I told them so. You're second to none. The love of all mankind should reflect some sign of these words I've tried to recite. They are close but not quite, almost impossible to do, reciting the makings of you.
Yay.
Man, that song gives me goosebumps every time.
Man.
So Andre, let's talk a little bit about some of the artists that you have worked with. A few names like Gene Chandler or Jerry Butler.
Jerry forever. Gene, I never worked with. People always listed him.
Let's talk with Gene, Jerry Butler, Iceman.
Jerry was a mentor of mine. I met Jerry in the studio playing on some music of his that Richard Evans produced. And at the time I was living in Richard's basement in Chicago. And Richard had me record with Eddie Harris and Ahmad Jamal and a bunch of different people. And that's also how I met Bruce Swedeen at Brunswick.
Bruce, right.
And then I ran into Jerry, and Jerry said, yeah, I've seen you before. I know you played with Curtis in the Impressions. And he also knew who my uncle was.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was pretty special, you know.
Yeah.
So I always had a lot of respect for Jerry. And then when Curtis asked me to move to Atlanta, when he was going to go solo, I had just gotten married and I didn't want to move to Atlanta. And that precluded me from doing that. And Lucky said that he would find a drummer for Curtis. So it would be Lucky and Craig McMullen, and then they went and got Tyrone. But so I stayed in Chicago and I called up Jerry and I found out that his drummer was ill, Hassan Mia. Hassan was an excellent drummer, except that he had the monkey on his back. And he was very sick at the time with the monkey. So I went to Jerry and I said, Jerry, I would so be honored if I could play with you. Jerry I didn't audition. He hired me on the spot.
Wow.
Up in his office. And he said, I need you on a plane tomorrow to New York. He said, they're staying at the Gorham Hotel. You want to rehearse? Then we're doing a big show at Madison Square Garden on a revolving stage. Wow. Said, as a matter of fact, the Impressions are on that show too. Oh. And he said, Junior Walker and the All-Stars, Four Tops, the Dells,
Yeah.
And I said, oh, geez. So I said, great. So we shook hands, agreed upon a price, and Jerry put me down with New York Life. When you worked for Jerry, you were insured.
Oh,
you had to wear a tuxedo. You had to read music.
Wow.
You had to be prompt. And after the gig was over, he would fly you to wherever you went. You didn't all have to go to the same place. If you were in Cincinnati and the gig was in LA, he'd send you a ticket from Cincinnati to LA.
Okay.
nice.
And if the gig was larger than a club, he would hire horns. We always we played orchestrated style, large, tried to make it sound large.
Absolutely.
So I hit the plane, and I was very grateful. And I get off the plane, and I hit the hotel. I go down the hall, and I smell food at the end of the hall. They always put musicians at the end of the hall. Y'all need to quit that. So I went, and the door was open, and it was Patty.
Patty LaBelle.
And Nona and Sarah were sitting on the bed. Robert Boogie Bowles, who's been with Smokey for years, that was Jerry's musical director.
Okay.
Sitting on the bed, Dave Green, the bass player, Arthur Kane, the keyboard player, Bernard Williams. They were all eating food. Patty had cooked on a hot plate dinner in her room.
I believe it.
Patty took care of us like our mother.
Yeah, that's awesome.
This is before they went to England to become LaBelle.
Okay.
Okay, so it was Patty, Nona, and Sarah. It was Jerry's band. And we rehearsed at a dance studio just for a day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we had that shit down. They had those background parts down. And plus you had to be a little animated because Jerry never moved. He was
to the point.
If the keyboard player got busy, Jerry said, yeah, good job. So finally we're at the Gorham Hotel. The next day we go to sound check, and last minute Impressions come to me freaked out. They didn't have a drummer.
Oh boy.
So they said, we need you to play with us tonight too.
Double duty.
Yeah, double duty, and I charged them double money. They were pissed off. They were not. They were not happy because I charged them double. I after so long of putting up with the low money with them, I said, well, I got to get them one time.
Yeah. What about the college boy thing?
So when I finished with Jerry, with Jerry, it was great. I just sat on the drums and another band, and then the Impressions came out, and I played for them too.
That's awesome.
That's how I joined Jerry, and Jerry introduced me to his writer's workshop. He introduced me to more musicians like Tom 84.
Tom.
Yeah, and Gene Barge, and James Mack, and all these great people. And I met Bill McFarlane, a trombone player. I met Charles Colbert, who was the black bass player with American Breed.
Well, you know what? You know what? We want to get into that, but I'm gonna toss it to you, Midas.
Okay, we're gonna jump ahead to the Rufus days. Yeah. Now you guys, like you said, you started off as American Breed. Take us through the transitions from American Breed to you rebranding into Rufus.
Well, first of all, right after leaving Jerry, because Jerry just stopped gigging for a hot minute, I went and played with a man named Tennyson Stevens.
Okay.
Tennyson Stevens I think he been in Hawaii for a few years. A good friend of Master Henry Gibson. This is a man who played and sang like Donny Hathaway's father.
Really?
He's still around. It's an excellent musician. If you ever go on YouTube, look up Tennyson Stevens.
Tennyson Stevens.
Yeah, and he was a favorite of James Mack in Chicago. We did a big orchestra record with him one time. A song written by Vince Willis called "These Are the Fruits of My Love."
Okay.
And then after I left Tennyson, Richard Evans called me and said, "Look, there's a band called Rufus playing at Rush Up that needs a drummer. They have a black vocalist named Paulette McWilliams, and they got a black man named Charles Colburn on bass, and the rest of the group is white, and they used to be the American Breed."
Okay.
So he said they're looking for a drummer, and he said plus they need somebody for voiceovers. He said because they do jingles for the not William Morris, but what's the agency in Chicago that does the ads? Leo Burnett.
Okay.
Yeah. So I used to do voiceovers too.
Really? Oh, they hit it one time?
Yeah, I used to make money doing that too. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Anyway, that's how I wound up going down to the club, is that I knew who American Breed was.
Right.
Because I listened to those records. I used to see them on American Bandstand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Charlie was the only black person I'd ever seen with a little handlebar mustache.
Oh, the handlebar. Yeah.
He had like that Beatle cut little handlebar.
Yeah.
He was the bass player.
Nice.
Okay. And then they changed from American Breed into a group called Smoke.
Oh, Smoke. Okay, I didn't know that part.
They saw that the musical scene was changing and the hippie thing came along. So they tried to act accordingly. And they turned into Smoke, and then they turned into Ask Rufus. As Ask Rufus came about, they dropped a few people.
Okay.
Charlie started doing more singing and playing conga instead of playing bass.
Mm.
That's when they hired Willie Weeks, was the bass player.
Oh yeah, Willie Weeks. Yes.
And then they got Ron Stockard in the band, and then Kevin Murphy, the other keyboard player. But the main keyboard was Ron Stockard. And then two of the members, Al Siner and Lee Graziano, were still from American Breed.
I see.
So by the time I came to sit in, the drummer wanted to leave.
Okay.
Which left only two originals. Which was Charlie Colbert, the brother on bass, and Al Siner, the guitar player. All right.
I see.
By then, Willie Weeks had left, and then they hired a guy named Dennis Belfield. All right. And then they had hired Paulette McWilliams to sing. And Paulette McWilliams was acceptable because she was neat and clean, and she had her wig was tight. She was a very acceptable black person.
Right. Yeah.
In Chicago is a racist city. She was acceptable to perform. Okay. That if it was too hippie-ish, black folks weren't really getting too down into Jimi Hendrix. They were getting close. To me, we used the hippie thing as fashion. We really didn't go there mentally.
Right, I got you. Right.
Because we weren't pissed off that our daddies lied to us. We were pissed off the country lied to us. So that it turned into that configuration. So the night I went down to that club, that was that configuration. I sat in that night and tried to kill it. And then after it was over, the one who told me that I was hired was the drummer leaving.
Oh, wow.
He was a very nice man, Lee Graziano. He was so gracious. He said, "Man, you're really good, man." No, he was a sweetheart. I love him. I talk to him to this day.
Yeah.
Nice.
And he let me come in, and then we start rehearsing, and then I'm starting to show them Sons of Chaplin and showing them some jazz stuff, and then they're showing me some country funk stuff and some Allman Brothers. So we start doing musical exchange and rearranging things. And they had a couple great songs. So I liked it. Plus, I'd never been in a group. I'd always been a sideman.
I see.
So this was a group. What you got out of it is what you put into it.
Very true. Very true.
No matter what you did as a sideman, it was still somebody else's thing. Okay?
Yeah. Right.
So we start coming up with arrangements. We had a couple road guys, an equipment truck, 2 9-passenger Dodge Polara station wagons, and we were the top club band in Chicago. So as soon as we decided to make another record, they tried earlier to make a record with Sandy Linzer. That's the one who produced I'm a Native New Yorker by Odyssey.
Okay.
I'm a native New Yorker. Okay. And Sandy Linzer's production sounded like Sandy. So he only got groups to put in his production. Where Rufus needed someone to understand who they were. And he did a cookie cutter, and the album never came out.
Okay.
Right after that's when Willie Weeks left. And wound up playing with Donny Hathaway. Because on the Donny Hathaway Live, that's Willie playing bass.
Okay.
Right. That's 15 minutes solo.
Yeah.
Now he's Carolina boy too, but by way of here, by way of Minnesota.
Yeah. At what point does Rufus bring in Chaka?
First of all, there's one story out that I saw that Paulette wrote in Wikipedia somewhere about how Chaka got in the band. And I'm Capricorn. It's inaccurate. It's not correct.
Okay.
And what happens is the guys in the band already knew her. They'd seen her before.
I see.
Okay. And what the hubbub was is Chaka wasn't Paulette. It's how she looked or how acceptable as far as their minds were concerned. Chaka was a little wild child. And to me, I didn't see how Chaka looked as much as I heard that voice.
I see.
Because here I am only playing with singers all my life.
Right. So
I heard Chaka's voice. I said, you want to do a record? Here it is. So I took Charles Colbert with me to the Pumpkin Room, which is on the south side of Chicago. A lady named Josephine ran it. And on Wednesday nights, a group called Bosco would play. And that group had Scotty Harris in it, and as a drummer, and a couple other good musicians. And the singer was Yvette Stevens. She was taking money at the door, and then she goes sing.
Double duty.
Okay, so what happens is I went to that club, and you know who told me to go see her was Tennyson Stevens.
Okay,
because Tennyson would go to the club on the nights he didn't play, and he'd hear Chaka sing. He said something about this girl. Now, I knew she'd been around town in a couple little configurations, but as far as the top band in Chicago playing the clubs was us.
Indeed.
So when I took Charlie Culver with me, the brother, and we sat there, and Charlie looked at me. He said, "Look, man," he said, "the guys in the band ain't gonna like her." He said, "I know who she is."
Okay.
And I looked at him like he lost his mind, and I bugged the hell out of him, and he would laugh at me. I just bugged him. I said, "Look, man, I hear it in my head, Charlie.
Right.
I hear that voice.
Yeah.
Just a little training with this girl. She has a natural ability. She hears shit, and she went to Catholic school. It wasn't about no Baptist stuff.
Yes.
She heard fourths and fifths instead of thirds and triads. Naturally.
So you kind of pushed for her to be in the group.
I pushed like nobody's business. Brought it to the group.
Yeah.
Paulette was on her way out. She agreed to stay that extra week or two to help with the transition. And as far as that was concerned, and I know she didn't dislike it because Paulette was getting ready to go do something else. So I didn't get any vibe from her one way or the other. I only got a positive vibe.
Yeah.
But the one who pushed for Chaka and got her in the group was me. Because then in turn, because of that,
there we go.
That's when they turned around and looked at me. They said, "Well, if you want her in the group, you're her babysitter."
Yeah. Who's that gentleman on the far right there? We got some bets going on. I'm sorry?
Bobby Watson.
Bobby Watson. Okay. We were trying to figure that out yesterday.
Yeah,
Ken owes me a case of Mountain Dew.
Okay. So with Chaka, what happens is that meant that I had to be the one to pick her up. I had to be the one to scoop her for rehearsal.
Yeah.
If we needed to go somewhere or do anything involving her, that was my responsibility because they said she's late, she don't come on time. If this is going to happen,
so you had to vouch.
Because Paulette was like, on time and dressed.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I took that on like an idiot.
Yeah. Like an idiot.
but trying to become.
But it worked.
Well, trying to become a big brother, also, I sacrificed my personal life.
Indeed. What were some of the records?
My first marriage got ruined behind that.
Oh, man. Okay.
So, what happened is that when I first met Chaka, she had a cavity right here. First thing I did is I had to take road money to take her to get that cavity fixed because I said, I trained her like my mother had trained me. The first thing people see is your mouth.
Yes.
Also, I would argue with her about you can't turn your back to the audience. You're not Bob Davis.
Yeah,
not when you're a vocalist. Okay.
Right. Very true.
And a bunch of different. She was raw, man, but she had all the
potential. You saw the potential.
She had all the elements and all the energy, and she was a sweetheart and very impressionable. And also she was a little hippie.
Yeah.
She was like, she was like far out, twisting your hair and just be far out.
What was some of the Yeah.
That was rehearsed. So I had to keep up with that. I had to, I had to go pick her up. I had to babysit.
You did what you had to do. What were some of the records that you guys cut at that time?
Maybe Your Baby done made some other plans. Stevie's tune. Who's Ever Thrilling You Is Killing Me by Alan Toussaint. That's off our first album. And then the first album got some play. Well, first of all, let me tell you how we got signed to ABC Dunhill Records.
Sure.
Okay, so now we rehearsing. Now we got the new vocalist. Now they're jamming me up. You better get her here on time and the whole. And I remember taking money to go buy her some stage clothes. And I'd buy her the clothes, and then the next day I'd see Beverly, Taka, her sister, walking down the street wearing the clothes. And plus, they were squatters. Some of her hippie friends were squatters.
Yeah.
They find an abandoned apartment. They'd run a power line from a garage or next door, and 5 or 6 of these little hippie clan would come up, and they wound up living in there and wearing each other's clothes and panhandling and playing music or doing whatever they had to do. It was like a little clan of people.
Wow.
Chaka was like the little den mother. She would be like the little mama for him.
Yeah.
And that was an actual thing. It was funny for me because the white hippie thing was already starting to peter off. So to see it manifest itself in black people, it wasn't that crazy because we had the original commune. Okay, it's just what bothered me for a while is that the morals and the ethics were being shaped in a world where we were descendants of people that had been captured.
Okay.
So in other words, when you come up with laws and rules based on what, and did it include me when you were thinking about this? Yeah. So when you're making up little things, what's your point of reference? All right. So anyway, but I had to drop all my conservative thoughts. Because when people do things they think that might matter or they might make some money, everybody turns into a Republican overnight. Yes, all of a sudden you might think you might lose your car, then everybody gets a little Republican. Okay? Right. So, but that's because of the environment that we've been raised in, Yeah. So Chaka's coming up. We're making up new songs. We're sharing musical identities and ideas. We're like taking mescaline and Nestle's Quick. And going bowling. Yeah.
And making hit records.
The rehearsals were fabulous.
Yeah. What you were in on cutting Tell Me Something Good as well?
The first 5 records.
Okay. What yeah. Do you mind if we play a little clip?
And influence beyond that.
All right. Do you mind if we play a little clip? That was definitely a solid hit from you guys.
That's great. And then also one of the best recordings of it was I think Midnight Special with Wolfman Jack.
That might be the one. I'm not sure.
When we did it live, and we lifted the tempo a little bit and made it a little funkier.
All right, let's see if that's the one we got. I know we saw some Wolfman Jack stuff. Okay. It's coming up. Check it out.
All right, man.
Here's Rufus featuring Chaka Khan. All gonna tell us something's good.
by Stevie Wonder, correct?
Yep. And Chaka.
Yes.
That was nice rendition. Nice arrangement.
Stevie and Chaka, but Stevie don't split no publishing, so
he's splitting that publishing. Wow, I tell you.
Yeah. So it looks like they I was thinking about Stevie for a second. But it looks like down the line you were thinking about behind the scenes doing production and stuff like that. How did that come about?
That's from day one. That's my nature.
Okay.
I, as a child, all I did was watch my father be a shop foreman. Okay, so, and I'm alpha anyway.
Yeah.
So what happens is those mixed together, once you learn how to treat people, becomes an asset. And as a producer, it's about trust. So usually if you feel someone's confident and has your back and you trust them, that creates a totally different work environment. As opposed to somebody telling you what to do, they're there to protect you instead. You know, because when I first when I had to do certain people's albums, you know, I remember first time Layla came to me. I'm finishing off her first album, Layla Hathaway, and she said the other people that have worked with me on this record, they don't ask me what I think; they're telling me what to sing. So we went through the record and I redid everyone else's vocals the way Layla wanted to do them and redid all the background. And then cut some fresh tunes on her. And then I did It's Something, the Brenda Russell tune, and I did a Marilyn Scott tune and a couple other ones. And then remixed that whole thing. And that was because no one asked Layla's opinion.
Okay.
How dare you get someone like that, fresh out of Berkeley, with all these ideas and that DNA, and not say, well, how do you hear it?
Think, yeah. What do you think?
Yes, you're not kidding.
So that's when I got mad at the institutions, because producers became stars when labels stopped developing people. When A&R used to mean something 40 years ago because they developed you at the label.
Sure.
Right.
Either that or they developed you at the label because they wanted to have input into your song, because without them re-recording you, they had nothing to do with you, actually. Well, let's redo your demo. Sometimes the demo was the master.
Absolutely.
But they can't get in your business until they put you on tape again, which means then they own part of it.
There you go.
So it's like some of it's game and some of it's legit. But I don't expect any institution to totally educate my children nor to protect my culture. That's not their job.
Right.
Good point.
You know, a pimp his job is to pimp, and it's my job to make sure I don't get pimped.
Yeah.
Right. Well, in your producing days, you produce your wife, Natalie Cole.
Yeah.
And tell us about how that came about. Unforgettable.
It came about from trust. First of all, I just moved back. I've been living in Paris for 4 years, from 86 through 89. I was musical director for a guy named Michel Jones, which is kind of their version of who's the guy who sings "Sweet Caroline"? Neil
Sedaka.
That's right.
No, not Neil Sedaka.
Oh, really?
Sweet Caroline. Oh, I forget.
Anyway, Neil Sedaka sang a different song. This is the other deal. So what I'm saying, it was, if there was an equivalency, it would be equivalent to that in France.
Neil Diamond.
Neil Diamond.
There you go. Yes.
So it was like their version of Neil Diamond. He was like a poet and an actor and an entertainer. So I moved to France as his musical director, and then I also co-produced a couple shows for Canal Plus. That's the same company that helps produce all of Luc Besson films, like The Professional and all those films that were done. Those were banked by European de Bank and Canal Plus. That's like a French version of HBO. And I also worked for them while I worked for this artist, and I co-produced 2 weekly variety shows on French television, as well as toured the world with this guy, Michel Jones, and then spent a lot of time in French-speaking countries where he wouldn't just do one concert. He'd do an orchestra hall in a city, and people would come from miles. It would be packed every night for a week. So we did every town for a week or 2.
Wow.
Nice.
And we stayed in bed and breakfast, and he had a chef. We had 5-course meals for sound check.
Wow,
Okay.
can't beat that. The sound check.
I almost didn't move back. So I moved to France after 4 years. And also I had 2 of my middle kids live with me over there. Instead of missing them, I just raised them there with me.
Good. Good.
2 of my daughters now are still fluent French.
Oh,
Yeah, so if you talk trash to them at a restaurant, they'll go into another language and talk trash to them. Okay. What did you say about my mom? But so what I did is I came back from France, and I'm like, okay, so I'm back, you know, and it was crazy because I was making 10 grand a week, and I lived there, you know, for 4 years. You do that. And what happens, I had money, but that's not why I did it.
Right.
So I hooked up with the Pia Zadora. She wanted me to produce a record on her, and I told her, you can't sing, Pia. It would be a magic trick. So I did some as a favor to her husband. His name was Michelle Rickless, and he owned the Riviera Hotel and Elizabeth Arden, the cosmetics company. And in the interim, while I was doing the record, I needed somewhere to stay, so he put me in the guest wing of Pickfair in Beverly Hills, which was the Mary Pickford Estates, which Jerry Buss bought and then sold to Mechoulam. So I have the whole guest wing to myself, and the only other people who stayed there were the Duke and Duchess of Windsor during the Second World War.
Wow.
So here I am back from France, got nothing to do, living in Beverly Hills and hanging out with Mechoulam Rickless. You know, where he says, you want the keys to my beach house? And I'm like, she still can't sing, Mechoulam. and then when I give him a bill for my service, he'd say, well, why haven't you charged me more? I said, I charge you what I charge because you have money. I can't charge you more money to make a hit record.
Very honorable.
Right.
You know, I'll make a hit record. That's my purpose. The money is just to pay for my time.
Right.
So we became friends. I became tight with this man. And also I found out that, you know, he worked with his hands for a living.
Okay.
And also all of his crew that worked for him at his offices, they were all ex-Mossad. They were all ex-Israeli Secret Service, and every car in his where he lived had Council Corps license plates on it. And the only way you have those, you have to be associated with the with a different country. Okay. So there was something going on here, and then his best friend was Milken, the one who owned Regency Films in part of Puma.
Okay.
And then I find out later that these people I'm hanging out and having dinner with, Milken was the one who sold nuclear technology to the South Africans during apartheid from Israel.
Wow.
So I said, you know what? I need to get out of here.
Yeah, I think so.
You get that check and keep moving.
So I got a manager, and I said, look, I want an appointment with Natalie Cole. I heard Natalie was getting ready to go in and do a new record. And I knew she had recorded Miss You Like Crazy. And she needed to complete the rest of the record. And I had met Natalie in 1975 in Tokyo in Rufus.
Wow.
At the Tokyo Music Festival. And I tried to date her then. Only because she was strong. I'm attracted to strong females. That's not a turnoff for me. So that's how I knew, you know, when she told me she was with Marvin Yancey, I knew Marvin from Jerry Butler's Writers Workshop. Him and Chuck Jackson. Okay. So, and Terry Knox and all these great writers. And Billy Butler, I knew them all from Jerry Butler.
Okay.
So anyway, he sets up an appointment, and there's a thing called Le Mobile. It's a mobile recording unit that they had out at Kendon, parked out at Kendon. And it was there being reserviced, and I had use of it. Guy, the owner I knew, and he said, look, you can use the playback in the truck to play some songs for Natalie.
Awesome.
So I picked out some tunes, and gonna make you mine, I'll make you mine. I picked out some really nice tunes, and I played her these tunes, you know, and I'm looking at her, and she liked the tunes.
Okay.
well, how much would you charge? And so we start talking, and then we just got along. We just clicked.
Yeah.
And she said she was going to be in Reno, and said invited me to Reno. I said, well, I got my kids. She said, bring your kids. And she said, after I'll show them backstage. And I said, no, they've been enough backstage.
Right.
Said, well, they can meet my son, Robbie. So we start dealing as friends. And then also I start bringing her tunes, and we start going over arrangements, and we just clicked.
Awesome.
It was natural. There was nothing odd. It was a natural circumstance. Right. And there was respect there because I wasn't trying to prove anything to her. Mm-hmm. Because one, I wasn't doing it for money. I'd come back fat.
Right.
It's different if you're talking to somebody and you're dependent upon getting that job. It's a different energy. And my energy is always like I'm solvent, although I may be starving, you'll never know.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
That's how your parents teach it.
Yeah,
keep your pants pulled up. You got a $2,000 suit on, but you can't afford underwear. All right.
Oh my gosh.
Only time people know you're butt naked is if you pull your pants down. Okay. So anyway, here I am with Natalie, and we go in and we start recording stuff. Then I meet her cousin, who's her band leader, and Charles Floyd, who's playing keyboard with her. Okay. And I wind up in the clique. I knew the background singers, and we start hanging out. And then I met her son, Robbie, and Robbie and I clicked, although I saw all the problems that he had. Mm-hmm. But I got kids, so I'm patient, so we start getting together at that point. Plus the main thing I got from her is, as strong as she was, is also how weak she was. Mm. Her self-esteem was attached to things where it should have been a separate issue. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us carry luggage around, and we combine isms, we combine pain, where it needs to be separated and some of it needs to be thrown away.
Yeah.
It's like, what's my inspiration may be a whole bunch of positive and negative stuff all mixed together. Mm-hmm. And as we get older, we throw some of the stuff away that we don't need to inspire us anymore, or the people we don't need anymore to be hanging out with. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's say Natalie and I were both through that process, and we were both scared, and we both clung to each other. And she knew her craft and I knew mine. And together, you couldn't fit a piece of paper between us, because when I go in the studio with her, she knows I'm not going to let her back off.
Right.
Okay. And other producers would get with her and she'd intimidate them. Mm-hmm. And I said, why are you patronizing her? She wants you to tell her the truth. Instead, you kissing her ass, she will run you over. So I wouldn't go for that. And she would laugh. She would laugh. So Sweetie and I had a different kind of relationship. I think actually getting married may have spoiled some of it.
Okay.
But because then, all kind of other things came out of closets and stuff. But as far as musically, the two of us together, if we were assassins, you'd be dead.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Back to back, she knew exactly how to lay the phrases across the bar. She was self-correcting. She knew how to deal with her intonation. She knew when she was nasal that she'd stack it and use it to her advantage if that day wasn't a perfect day. Microphone technique against the axis. We just communicated. We finished each other's sentences and we rolled. And when we finished that stuff at the end of the day, we'd be laughing because everyone else seemed to have such problems with figuring things out. We just did it.
Right.
How did you come upon Unforgettable? Because of her dad?
Well, it's not just because of her dad. Now, Natalie had tried to sing a couple of her dad's tunes in a few of her live shows.
Okay.
Now, she did one segment a long time ago where she showed a little film clip of her dad.
Okay.
So, in other words, that was in her brain for a minute, but it had no one knew how to manifest it into a record. Mm-hmm. Well, your boy here knows how to manifest
your boy.
Okay. You know what? We got a clip for that.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
We got a clip for that.
No, what the guy said? I got an app for that.
There you go.
An app for that clip.
We got a clip for this.
Unforgettable. That's what you are.
Unforgettable, the near or far,
like a song of love that clings to me. How the thought of you does things to me. Never before has someone been more
unforgettable in every way,
and forevermore. That's how you stay.
That's how you stay.
That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too.
Nice. Andre, I wanted to talk to you about two of Verdine's very favorite artists. One is Johnny Mathis, and this is no lie. The other one is Tony Bennett. And you've done some Grammy winning work with him. Can you tell us a little bit about working with him?
With Tony?
Tony.
Yes, I got a call from Jimmy Einer from Columbia, from CBS. And this is after I'd done Unforgettable. And he'd asked me if I'd be interested in doing Tony. Mm-hmm. At that particular time, they were going to drop Tony from the label because they felt that whatever he had advanced in advance of sales, that he was never going to sell enough to make up for what they had to keep giving him.
Wow.
And so he asked if I could get involved. And at that time, I know that his son, maybe still is, his manager, Danny Bennett.
Okay.
So I gave Danny a call and found out that their budget was so low, they didn't have enough to pay my total fee.
Wow.
And nor to bring my engineer to New York with me. So in order to do that project, first of all, when I'd heard that Tony wanted to do a record, I found out where he was after I talked to Jimmy Einer. And I went over to Beverly Hills to an art gallery where Tony was looking at art. And I guess they had one or two of his sketchings there. So I go in there and introduce myself and tell him that his son told me where he was. And I start talking to him, telling him that I want to do his next record. And that little Sicilian dude looked at me like, and who in the hell are you? So I'm like, excuse me, Mr. Bennett. And basically the main reason I was there was from a memory of high school. I left my heart in San Francisco.
Oh man, yeah.
When people would always talk about Frank Sinatra, I thought Tony Bennett was a bit more soulful. So I would always think about Tony Bennett. So I told him I needed to speak to him some more. He said, well, if I wanted to talk with him, he was getting ready to leave town to go to San Francisco. He was going to play up at the Fairmont. And if I wanted to talk to him, to meet him for brunch at 11 the next day. I'm like, Negro, what? So, but guess who was at the restaurant the next day in San Francisco?
You.
Tony Bennett. You were.
So basically, I'm a closer. So I closed it and let him know he wanted Frank Laco to be the engineer, which had been the engineer on I Left My Heart in San Francisco.
Okay.
So I did research, and Frank had prostate cancer, and he hadn't engineered in years.
Okay.
And Tony wanted to be placated. So what I wound up doing is having Frank come to the studio, and I put 2 red pieces of tape right in front of the monitor. So he was controlling Tony's monitors and the EQ and the vocal levels to his headphones.
Okay.
And then on the side, I brought my own engineer, Woody Woodruff, who I stole from David Foster. and sit over on the side with Mike Freeze recording directly to the 24 track.
Wow.
Okay. So I had Joe LaBarbera on drums, which had been with Bill Evans. I had this great bass player and Ralph Sharon, who was Tony's pianist. And he was slightly intimidated by Tony because if Tony would start to slow down, Ralph would slow the track down. And I kept trying to pep talk him and say, just because Tony's back phrasing, I don't need you to back phrase. So I had to be a cheerleader. I had to be a psychologist. I had to be with guys who, one, didn't really know what my credentials were, other than I had to gain some instant respect. And also, I was spending my own dime because no matter how Tony acted, they didn't have enough money to pay me. Send for my engineer or the studio I got a cut rate on because I blocked the time out.
Okay.
So in other words, I was already pulling stuff out of respect.
Right.
So the funny part is one day at lunchtime, Danny would come to the studio, Tony's son, and he would always bring business to him. You know, you got to go do this art gallery and you got a gig coming here. And I'm like, that's not the time.
To the studio.
To the studio. You need to do this in the morning or in the evening. And every time Danny would leave, I don't know if he did it on purpose, but every time Danny would leave, Tony had an attitude.
Okay.
Wow.
And with Tony, you don't have to get Tony to sing. You have to stop him from singing. No, he's a trooper. He will sing without a microphone in the middle of the
sing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's old school professional, man.
Yeah, there you go.
So, he starts on this song after lunch, and it's just too rough. And I pushed the talk back, and I said, Tony, can we change the song? I need another energy. And he grumbles out and says, don't tell me what to do. You know, and I'm thinking about, I done paid for my own airfare here.
Yeah, all of that.
Okay.
Did you get hot?
I said, take it easy, brother. Because my father said, you can't get too enamored with people.
Right.
Because then you don't do your job.
There you go. Yep.
Oh, I'm such a fan of yours. Yeah, but you got to tell him if he's singing sharp or flat. Okay.
Right.
So finally, what I did is I went out in the room, and I always wore double-breasted sport coat. You know, it's like I'm in 1950 or something.
Okay.
So I was clean. So I go out, I take my sport coat, and I get next to Tony, and I go, "Ole!" I thought that was funny. He didn't think that was very.
Oh man, not Ole.
So I was making a joke out of it.
Oh, of course, trying to diffuse.
I was trying to diffuse it.
Right.
So when that didn't work, I put my coat back on, and I said, when you're ready to carry on, Tone, I'm ready to work. I walked out the room, looked at the engineer, said, wrap that shit up, put it on the shelf, meet me at the hotel in the bar, I'm out. He turned the light out. The musicians were still in the room with the light.
Light out.
I walked right out the front door, caught a cab, went right to the hotel.
Wow.
Okay. 2:30 in the morning, phone ring. Who do you think it is?
Tony.
He's apologizing.
Okay.
I said, I made it like I couldn't hear him. Beg your pardon?
Yeah, right.
So he said it 3 times.
This guy's a character.
You are a Capricorn.
I said, I heard you. So before he can hang up, I know where Tony stays in Manhattan. If he doesn't go all the way home, I know the building he stays in. So before he can hang up the phone, I put my clothes on and I take a cab over there. I knock on the door. He opens the door, and that's when I see Tony without his hair. And realize this is my grandfather. You know what I'm saying? Out of respect.
Yeah. You saw him in a different way.
I'm talking to my elder.
Yes.
So I went inside and we drank some wine and we talked till the sun came up. You know, and after that day, I've been friends with him ever since. We went back. We cut 23 songs.
Well, we're gonna listen to one of them right now. I'll be seeing you. Which is done by 25 artists, but Tony does it.
Indeed.
I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in every everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
Ooh, man, that's nice stuff. Good stuff.
Anyway, my bet paid off. My instinct was correct. And his son was able to get him some articles in Spin magazine. Bob Guccione's son was the editor of Spin at the time, and Danny knew Bob Guccione. And then also they got Tony on MTV, not his song, but him on MTV, and that helped as well. So that album won a Grammy. So my gamble paid off. I'm glad I did it. You know,
Nice.
Yeah,
and was able to bring his butt back because I got to, you know, as usual, I get calls to fix things. You know, it was like, you know, this is going to be his last record, and it wasn't. It became the beginning of a whole nother career.
The beginning. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm proud. I'm proud of my work. I'm proud of my work.
As you should be.
Out of respect.
Yes.
For a high school memory.
Yes, indeed.
You know,
that's great.
It's just like when I hear Brenda Holloway now, or different artists I remember that came through my high school, and I remember the reverence I had because there were some serious musicians that went to my high school. You know, I miss them all. They were all excellent, and there's a few still around, but quite a few of them have gone on to that big jam session in the sky.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So I'm very reverent of my history and those people, because those people are part of my life.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
My life is a life which is part of a world which is part of a culture. You know, so you're never alone if you think about it.
Very true. Very true. And I'm looking at the time here, Ken. We're going to go ahead and on to your next segment there, sir. Andre has so much. He has such a rich history. We be here all night trying to cram it in, but it's wonderful, man. Your career has been abundant for sure.
Shelly, did I give you enough information?
Oh wow! Wait, well, you said L.A. High. That did it for me. That's our alma mater for everyone out there.
Oh, okay.
Romans.
Very good.
Yes. All right.
Well, wow. So, Andre.
Yes, sir.
You've held many positions over your career. 2007, you left a position as an instructor at the University of Southern California's Thornton School of Music to assume a new position at Dean of McNally Smith College of Music. How did that come about?
I had a friend in Phoenix, and basically she finds executives positions. And she said, Andre, I know you're teaching at USC and you really love it, but they need a dean in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I'm like, I said, I was born there, but why would I go back there? It's too cold. And she said, look, they'll fly you in, you can see the place and listen to what they have to say. I said, okay, fine. So when I went in and checked the place out, I'm an educator by nature.
Okay.
So when I saw all these kids there and I saw some of the reading materials and some of their process, they were in a vacuum. It means they needed more hands-on, real professionals and not just teachers who read books.
Right.
To teach those kids, especially about music business and also recording. Schools have a tendency to make it seem that if you do good in the school, you'll do good in the business world. That's not true. So instead of teaching you how to make a resume, I want to show you how to be an entrepreneur. because if they don't call your number, you got to make your own.
Yeah, that's true.
So I looked at the place and I told them, I said, look, what do you really need here? They said, well, we need the president of our school. I said, well, does the president being involved with the curriculum and being hands-on? They said, no. I said, well, the dean is a good position for me then. Mm-hmm. And they said, how much? And when I gave them a basic price, they said, well, that's what we paid the president. And I said, that's a starter salary in the music business, y'all. I said, I can't do this just for money. If you help me relocate and, take care of where I live and give me a car allowance, I'll give you a 3-year with option. Okay. I said, but let me walk through the school. Let me take notes, and I'll give you my assessment of what I think the school needs, technically, which is going to cost you money, and what you need in terms of instructors or teachers, because I just came from the baddest place in the world, Thornton School of Music at USC. Right. So I was the only record producer who had a class there. Wow. Nice. My class was in a recital hall because there was 150 students. It was too big for a classroom. And what I would do is instead of telling you about people, I took the whole class to 20th Century Fox Soundstage to see a score being done. I brought business managers to the class. I brought Hubert Laws and Tamir Handelman to perform for the class. I brought Al Schmidt there. I brought Ronnie Vance there to talk to the class. Yeah, so it's like they're like, oh, let's go. I thought I was happening, except that to get tenure in a school like that takes years. Oh yeah. And so, so someone told me. Go ahead.
Now you go ahead.
Someone told me that if I went to another school and took the job as dean, if a few years later I came back to SC with that under my belt, I would get better opportunity. Okay. So that's the actual reason I did it. Awesome, man. In that world, because that world's not record company world.
Right. That's awesome. Well, your career really has been extensive. I'll tell you that.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
What my father used to say, anything beats a blank. Okay. Yeah. My real job is dad. Okay, all these other things I've done when I'm bored. Okay, and music's just part of my life, no matter what. Right. So, but my main job I found over the years is I'm a dad. I have 5 children and 9 grandkids. Okay. And that's my love.
That's awesome.
And if I could have gotten pregnant, I would have had.
Right.
Somebody stop him.
It's great.
I'd be pregnant right now.
Speaking of kids, we want to talk to you about what is it? Twin Cities. What is it, Midas? Twin Cities Mobile Project.
Yeah, Mobile Jazz Project.
Yeah, Mobile Jazz. There it is.
Mobile Jazz.
Thank you. Yeah. That's something we started in 2013. What I did is I copied the Jazzmobile from Harlem. When I lived in New York, there was a thing called the Jazzmobile that Dr. Billy Taylor put together. Okay. And they'd bring a flatbed truck to Harlem and put Dizzy Gillespie on it. Whoa. And they'd block off both ends of the streets, and the neighborhood would pack around the truck and listen to Miles Davis and Dizzy Gillespie and Tito Puente. And Billy Taylor was the black man who played piano that you saw on the Today Show all the time. Absolutely. There was something cultural about jazz. And Dr. Billy Taylor. Yep. He was the president of that organization. So basically here in Minnesota, I copied him. Instead of a brownstone neighborhood in Harlem, it was a big park or a middle school or high school in downtown Minneapolis or St. Paul. Okay. So I put a different thing on it, and that was just to present the music and then do workshops.
Right.
Our children are too damaged just for that. It's not enough just to teach a kid a beat. That doesn't do anything. Not at all. They got PTSD. They got shell shock. These children are exposed to all kinds of crazy stuff. Right. So what happens is a lot of schools, children get dropped off like it's a care center. Yeah. Where I don't hold institutions responsible to educate my children. That's my job. Okay. So Mobile Jazz, we found out that we couldn't just do music. So we partnered with the University of Minnesota with the Youth Social Work Department to help us make our curriculum. And then we get evaluated, and our instructors, who are mentors, get trained on how to deal with children that need to bring out their critical thinking and creative thought out, but to be able to communicate and express what their problems are.
Sure.
That's awesome.
Music and hip hop and dance and spoken word, these are all tools, doctors' tools.
Yes.
It's like kids love those shiny recording instruments.
They do.
If I get a top engineer or a great singer, I'm blessed, but that's not the point.
Right.
The point is to take care of our children and to give them
children are tomorrow. The future of tomorrow. You know?
Excuse me.
Oh, no problem. You need to take a swig. I mean, I'm gonna take one with you.
That's right. Well, let's all take a swig, right?
Yeah. Now, Andre, you got to tell us about. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you still continuing?
All I was going to say is that what happens is, because of our classes, we've tracked the fact that it brings test scores up. It brings their cognizant understanding up.
Sure.
As far as the communication between the right and the left hemispheres, dealing with music and the creation of music. So in other words, it's a serious program that when you speak to the child at the end of 12 weeks, that's not the same child.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
So in other words, this is something I see literally. I don't have to wait 3 years.
Right. Yeah.
We've already got students that have been through the program that are now coming back to be our TAs that want to teach the younger
help
kids.
you.
That's awesome.
That's great.
So, you know how many kids we deal with a day? It's almost 300.
Wow.
And that's wonderful. That's wonderful to give back.
We're at 4 rec centers in St. Paul. We're at a middle school, which is probably going to turn back into an elementary school, and 1 high school. Some of the top entertainers and rappers and engineers are my mentors.
Wow.
Ashley DeBose, Maria Issa.
Yeah. I was about to ask you about her next. That's a current artist that you're working with, right?
Well, I give her advice. The way I work with her
mentorship.
is mentorship.
Okay.
And she's also
I believe she was on The Voice.
On The Voice.
Season number 5.
She was on The Voice, yeah.
Right.
Season 5, yeah.
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Well, I'm into her because she works hard on her own records. She writes her own songs, makes her clothing, takes care of her daughter. It's like it's like Harriet. It's like Harriet Tubman is singing in a club.
That's awesome. So she's doing it all, as far as getting herself out there and seeking opportunities. And that's wonderful that you decide to mentor and help her further along a little bit.
Amen.
Yeah. And we're gonna give you a second.
You multiply that times whoever comes through the door.
Yeah. Indeed. And we do have a video of Ashley DeBose. We want to play a little clip off of The Voice.
Yay!
To get people at home familiar with her.
All right.
I saw the life inside of your eyes. Too bright and night was beautiful like diamonds in the sky. So alive, we are beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Whoa, yeah. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Oh, like diamonds in the sky.
Wow. What an artist.
That's awesome.
Great.
Yeah. That was
All right.
awesome.
Well, you know what?
Minnesota black folks are tough.
Hey.
They tough, huh?
The weather, we be carrying kids on our hip and
Doing it all.
Doing it all.
So Andre, Andre, we have a segment now that's called Shining Stars.
Shining Stars.
Where our audience can ask you anything they like.
Yeah.
So audience, start typing your questions and comments, and we'll do the best we can to get to them.
I've been yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Before there was Olivia Pope, there was André Fischer. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I understand what that means too. Yeah.
Okay. Who's got a question?
Yeah, who's got one?
I see
questions.
I see Eileen Holmes in the house.
Okay, we can do a few
my girl, who else? Linda Lane is in the house.
Hey, Linda. Yep. I saw Marissa.
Yeah.
Shout out to my cousins in the house from Chicago.
All right. My cousin.
That's my cousin.
Yeah.
That's my cousin. All right, Marissa. Wow, Andre, I am learning so much tonight. You have such a wonderful, pleasant personality, willing to share everything with us. Thank you. Great interview.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marissa.
Yeah, one of our faithful.
That's very nice.
Yeah, very faithful.
Yeah.
We
one
got
of our faithful watchers.
Now, Valerie Leonard. Valerie Leonard's in the house. She just did a great interview with Verdine.
Okay.
Good job.
Awesome.
Who else? Rhonda Badikian.
Rhonda. Milton Crow.
Rhonda.
Hey, Wes Aston was on. John Page, chairman of the board, representing.
All right. Chairman
of the last 3 or 4 weeks. We had our little Zoom call this past Tuesday. We revving up.
Right.
About to rev up, get some rehearsals in.
I'm just glad at the bottom it doesn't say Mr. Johnson from the IRS.
he was on last week.
We have some questions for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it my turn? Milton Crow says, Andre, you have worked with so many great artists. If you can say which one of them was the easiest to work with and which one was the most difficult.
Easy is a relative term. If I could say the easiest, whether it was easy working with them or just being pleasant, it was Chaka. I was always amazed by her.
Okay.
She always kept a smile on my face. I was always excited, and when I was a young man, I was in love with her.
Mm.
So there was a couple different elements going on at the same time.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
And that I'd say that was the easiest because that was also a mutual exploration where we were both experimenting. As a group with some other people, and it was a wonderful time.
And you got some good records.
The hardest,
Yep.
The hardest would be dealing with someone where you contractually signed to do a project that musically is beneath you, and that you're trying to be a magician instead of a musician. Those are the most difficult. To say a person, it's hard. People say, well, wasn't Nina Simone difficult? No, because we became friends. So instead of being in the studio working with Nina Simone, I was in the studio with my friend Nina.
Yeah.
There's a difference. But as far as just straight up difficulty, oh, Jesus.
The list is long, huh?
No.
I mean the complete list.
You know what? Who was actually hard to work for was Baby Huey.
Okay.
On a couple of weeks off with the Impressions, Melvin and I, and Turk Littles, famous trumpet player, and Plato Jones of all names, Danny Alfano and Danny O'Neill played with Baby Huey and the Babysitters. And the thing about Amy was his name was he was a perfectionist, but he was also a heroin addict. So I think midway through trying to be correct, he would go off somewhere. And so it was hard trying to please somebody who didn't have an anchor.
Gotta have an anchor.
But that's about it. To say who was the most difficult, there wasn't the most difficult, because if that were the case, I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Fantastic.
You're in control.
UK.
Linda Lane. Is it whose turn?
I'll go.
Okay,
I agree. Marissa Corleone. Lucas, great personality. Love him. I'm a strong female, and we do well together.
We didn't turn it into a matchmaking service.
It turned into a dating site.
All right, we had no idea. We had no idea.
Hey, we got the app for that.
We got an app.
Let's get that out. That's my story, dating.
Right.
Well, I'm definitely single. And I'm so busy with kids. I need to take a break.
Yeah.
Okay, what's on your bucket list?
All right, so
the bucket list
Yes.
is that if I live to my 90s, I'll be in Besançon.
Okay.
It's a small town on the way to Geneva.
Yes.
And I went there quite a few times when I lived in France. And I know you guys have been somewhere that when you walk down the street or something about it, you felt like you'd been there before.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that other life thing because I'm just having enough trouble with the one I got.
This one, huh?
But when I walked down that town and talked to the old ladies in the antique shop, they talked like they knew me.
Oh, wow.
And it just felt like a place I could sit in a rocking chair and I wouldn't feel so, you know how it's hard for us to be still?
Yes.
Right.
It's hard for Black people to be still because we're so busy trying to keep ahead of the Grim Reaper, the racism and everything else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like if I were a race car, I'd be real fast.
And we got that internal beat on the inside.
Yeah, so Besançon would be a nice place. But you know what? I keep thinking that because of the way I travel, you know, my solvency is not in a building or the fact I've had the same phone number for 30 years. My solvency is the fact that I'm home wherever I sit, that I take it with me. Okay, so I'm a road dog. So if anything, I may die in transit.
All right.
Awesome.
Linda. Go ahead.
Okay, is it my turn? Linda Lane. Linda Lane get a lot of TV time today.
I know, right?
You are brilliant. You've had such a fantastic career. Is there anything that you haven't done that you still want to do?
Yes, I want to do a one-man show where I can bring some of the different artists who's still around that I've worked with, and not always just because of a song I produced on them, but whatever aura that they are, bring that to public. You know, to be able to hear Dinah Washington, or to be able to hear Every Little Bit Hurts, Brenda Holloway, or Garnett Mims, or to hear some of those songs again played correctly in a big concert with our youngsters singing these songs, and to you know, it's like to keep our culture alive and see what gems and treasures that are still in our lives. You know, because ain't nobody covering no rap song.
Not really.
Well, when they give the publishing award out, 12 people go up on stage to accept an award. That's okay. True. I'm just saying that most people cover vocal songs.
Yes. You
know, so to me, all these great things we've laid down, and we see that 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, our contribution, they keep copying it.
Yeah.
It's like they don't know where. It's like they don't know where to go next. It's like, and we did that stuff off the top of our head. Okay, if Gamble and Huff copped an attitude one day and said, "Come on, let's go back in the studio," man, y'all could be blown away. I mean, you know, because with us, you guys can all attest to this. The only people who mark time as far as how old are you are convicts. Okay, when I wake up in the morning, I don't wake up in an age. I either wake up alive or not. And those energies, when you close your eyes, it's not how old you are. It's how much positive energy do I have left to do these things in my heart.
Great perspective.
So if there's something that I want to do that I haven't done yet, it's to even express myself more.
Okay.
But in a collective way, it's not just what I have to say, but what we have to say.
There you go.
Because we're a family.
Yeah.
You know, and that family. Look at you smiling. Because that's what family does. We're our family. It's like when somebody says they love you and means it. You know, we have to love each other.
Got to.
There ain't nobody else doing it.
Yeah, you're right about it. You're right about it.
In our music, what a cape to wear of our culture, this music that we do. You know, it's like now coming into the ring, you know, we got the cape on, right?
Yeah, got the cape on. Yeah, that's wonderful, man.
So we got the power of our ancestors and our parents and you know, and Gregory Porter and the spirit of Maurice and Charles Stepney, you know, and of Quincy and the people who came before him. I'm still sad that Donnie's gone, that Michael's gone, that we have to leave. There's always some kind of tragedy with us.
Yes.
Because we're not a tragic people.
Not at all.
We're not tragic people, and no matter what they do or say, it shines through. And I'm so blessed to be part of that I'm actually honored. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share this with you.
Thank you.
And the questions that you've asked.
Yes.
And to see such beautiful and handsome faces in front of
you. Likewise. Like you just added a little ice into our cake.
Absolutely. you Algerian.
Pardon, monsieur, no speak.
That's gonna conclude our questions and our shining stars and our questions and answers from the audience. Thank you guys so much at home for submitting your questions. They were good questions.
Now is the fun part. We get to introduce who's going to be on the show next week.
Oh, right.
And it is going to be amazing. This is the only, listen to me carefully, the only classic soul group of the 1970s that still performs with the original members.
Wow.
From their very first recording, they are Black Ivory. And they are also celebrating their 50th anniversary of their first hit single, Don't Turn Around. You remember that one? Don't Turn Around. Sexy soul classic. And also it's Honeycomb's One Ad's 50th anniversary also.
Okay. Wow.
So we have something in common with Black Ivy. We can't wait for Black Ivy. Vanessa Jordan, I know you're going to get it together.
Shout out to Vanessa. That's going to be
shout out to Vanessa.
Absolutely. All right. And folks at home, we want to also remind you all that if you haven't, be sure to visit our Patreon page. I think the link will be coming up shortly. Now, if you aren't familiar with Patreon, it allows us as creatives of an independent platform to secure patrons or contributors to our platform. Our Patreons will allow us and the rest of our team creative freedom to do our best work while maintaining and stabilizing our independence. In return, based on whatever tier you guys may select, you get these amazing exclusive goodies ranging from, we have some That's My Story bracelets, That's My Story masks, and also at the upper tier of things, you can even get a guest host spot. You can get some access to some behind the scenes content, as well as getting an inside glimpse at the creative process. So if you haven't, folks, make sure you go over to that Patreon page and do yourself the due diligence of just looking at it and checking it out. We understand that Patreon may not be for everyone. So if you're not able to do the Patreon, we do have that link again, our PayPal link. If you would still wish to be a blessing to our platform, you can submit a donation there, and every bit will be greatly appreciated. We love you guys, and we thank you for your support. I mean, folks, it's been 44 episodes, and we've been at this almost a year now since the pandemic first hit. So and things are starting to we getting our scheduling together. So things are starting to open up a little bit. We may get out on the road a little bit as we get into the warmer months. But until then, your contributions to our Patreon and to our PayPal will be kindly accepted. We gotta thank Mr. André Fischer one more time, man. He's an encyclopedia of musical knowledge, man. Oh my gosh!
I'm telling you.
Yes, it's been awesome. Thank you for you again taking a moment out of your day and giving us a little bit of education. And like we like to say, we like to celebrate while we educate on our platform.
There it is. And he's done that today.
Yeah, and we want to, and Andre, when we roll the ending credits, just stay on the line, and we'll, we want to give you a proper send off before we go have dinner and things.
Thank you.
All right. To my co-host and even to Andre, any closing words before we say goodnight to our audience?
Go ahead, Andre.
Best is what we do, and not what we say.
Yes. Actions speak louder. That's in a nutshell.
All right, let me say this. It's an honor to have you on, Andre.
Pleasure.
Thank you, man.
Your talents, your mind. Our audience they're going crazy about it. They're loving it. So you were a great guest, man. And
thank you.
I have to say, I remember when I had to go back. We saw you over in England, man, as chairman of the board. We had a night off, and we came to see you guys over in the club in London. And I tell you, when we left that club, y'all took us higher. Like Jack Wilson said, y'all took us higher, man. We were inspired. And I want to say, hey, man, thanks for the memories.
Hey, Miss Shelly?
Well, I'm just going to say what Andre said. And what Ken said.
Yeah.
We're so proud to have you on.
Oh man, it's been awesome.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shelly. Thanks for reaching out. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate you, and thank you, Ken.
I appreciate you.
And also Tazz.
Tazz.
I'm sorry.
Our producer. It's all good.
Please give Tazz my best, please.
Oh, she's
right here.
She's running everything in the background. And shout out to Wayne.
We got to thank Tazz Cole for the great videos.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She found all the great footage, and this is the producing is what she does best. So
yes, it did. Yeah, we
blessed to have her.
A lot of moving parts that culminate together to do this production every week. So we're on board and glad that you enjoyed your chat with us this evening.
Thank you. Yes.
We want to encourage everyone out there who's tuning in out there on Facebook and YouTube. Go over to that YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, get those notifications. Again, April 1st, we will no longer be broadcasting on Facebook. It will be YouTube only. We're going to look for you guys next week, episode 45 with Black Ivory. Until then, continue to follow the protocol, ladies and gentlemen. We know some of you are getting your vaccine shots and all of that, but still follow the protocol. Yeah, follow the protocol. Wear your mask when you're coming and going in crowded areas, or you're around people who are not within your household. Keep your 6 feet distance. Use your sanitizer. Keep your hands washed. Don't be going a whole lot of places. Yeah. And with that being said, once again, thank you, Mr. André Fischer, for such a beautiful chat this evening. Ladies and gentlemen at home, we're going to say good night. God bless you. We'll see you next week for episode 45. Peace and blessings. Stay on, Andre.